We got to talk about this because it's been 4 days and we're finally hearing from Chris Rock about the Oscars infamous now slap. Chris kicked off his comedy tour in Boston with 2 shows last night. Variety managed to get audio from one of his sets. Here is what he said.
I don't have like a bunch of about what happened. So if you came to hear that, I had like a whole show I wrote. I'm still kind of processing what happened. At some point I'll talk about that. And, it'll be serious, it'll be fun.
Wow, Chris also confirmed that he has not spoken to Will since the slap, despite earlier reports that the two had somehow settled the matter. Before we kick things off, I want you to see what because we're getting a lot of fans who were there last night, their reaction to a show. Here's one fan reaction.
Chris Rock didn't say anything about it. He already pre-writ what he was going to do over a week ago.
Wait, what, you want your money back?
We want our money back. Of course we want our money back. Who's paying $400 to see Chris Rock in 2022? Can we all say that honestly?
Well, I have to say, though, so many people, besides that one comment, said that it was brilliant. He brought up Ukraine. He brought up Trump. He brought up very George Carlin-esque. So despite that, Erica, what you thinking?
Well, you always need to. I'm glad we got to see the face of that small percentage of people who were there to heckle and not support. It's awesome that he had the time after robbing Bill Cosby's closet for that sweater. And then paying $400 to a third party in order to obtain the tickets, just to talk more smack about somebody who, honestly, he doesn't deserve that. He doesn't deserve it. I feel uncomfortable with the audio, too, because is it from somebody's cell phone in their pocket? I don't feel like that's an official statement when clearly it wasn't on mic. Maybe he didn't know that he was being recorded. Maybe that also contributed to what he did and didn't say, knowing that people were going to be, moles in there.
Yeah. It's, I look at that statement from that man. Actually, Erica, you were kind of disparaging. I follow him on Twitter. He's at lastcoogee-sweater-on-earth.com. Yeah, he's really a good follow. I recommend it. But, it's so interesting. It kind of highlights where we are in this country, in society where, when Richard Pryor would go through something, he'd be dealing with, drug issues, alcohol, domestic violence. He would take a year and write about it, figure out where the funny was, and create an incredible special, Live at the Sunset Strip, classic stand-up special. But we are at the instant point now, Jeff, where when something happens Sunday, you need to have an hour special ready to go Wednesday night. And do you understand that he cannot speak? There's probably some legal things going on, even if it's just criminal filed by the police and not by Chris himself. But the idea that we want to hear him speak, that guy wasn't a fan. He was a rubbernecker. He wants to see the accident on the side. He didn't go to hear him speak about Trump or Ukraine and kind of make sense of what this last couple of years in lockdown has been. He just wanted to go see something so he could tweet about it on a stolen video that he posted, Sorry, I ran out of steam there.
You could have went back to the Coogee sweater.
Anything, so I was I'm just going to walk now.
We do have other big news, and then I wanted to comment after this. Perfect, because we're also going to have a poll because we want to hear from our viewers. So the Academy said they asked Will to leave the show shortly after the slap and that he refused. That's according to the Academy. But there are now conflicting reports, with others saying that the producer of the show told Will, no, you can stay. So there's also reports of a heated exchange backstage with Will's reps and Academy execs. And meanwhile, the Academy held their emergency meeting yesterday to discuss the consequences for Will Smith. And they confirmed that Smith now faces suspension, expulsion, or other sanctions permitted by the Academy. Will has 15 days to respond before the board decides on April 18th. So we always want to hear from our DBL Nation. What do you think should happen? Should he lose his Oscar? Should he be kicked out of the Academy, or should he be suspended and not allowed to the next ceremony? All or nothing. There it is. All the options at the bottom. Please go to dblvote.com to tell us what you think. Jeff.
I think it's interesting that he gets a chance to rebut whatever their charges would be. That's interesting to me, instead of just laying it down because they are the Academy. Taking the Academy out, just Hollywood in general, it's crazy the ripple effects that this has caused, not just the incident itself, but how Hollywood handled this situation, because other producers, not the Academy, other shows, and I've talked about them a lot, have knee-jerk reactions, and that person has been canceled on multiple occasions right away, right? And the Academy now is saying, maybe to cover their own tail, we did ask them to leave, because why would you ask someone who assaulted somebody to stick around and get a standing ovation for? We said that early on. I think everyone's coming around to that conclusion. Some people aren't, right? It's a weird social experiment. It is. It's just weird, and having your opinion, people look at you some sort of way. But Hollywood now is under the gun.
You're right. And how do you think Chris Rock felt?
We're not talking about that.
We're not.
Yeah.
Chris Rock went straight, according to his camp or people that were backstage, he went straight to his dressing room. Right after that incident, did not come out. Later surfaced for a handful of minutes at an after party, and I guess just left. Can you imagine the trauma that he's feeling, especially when he's been very open that he was bullied as a kid? He's been recently open that he's on the spectrum. So what type of, he's going to therapy every day, dealing with a lot of the things that he dealt with as a child. And then everyone's asking to hear his reaction now, but he's still processing it. And you could speak to him being on the spectrum even more. How does that weigh into all of this?
I mean, it probably not. I think what speaks more to him being on the spectrum than anything, if anybody wants to see what it looks like in real time, is that I think a lot of people, when Will Smith was approaching him, I'm sure he had a look on his face like, this is not going to be good. And Chris never put his hands up.
I know.
Never, not once, because one of the traits, obviously, my youngest son has it. I think I definitely have some traits. My father, God rest his soul, definitely had some traits. I think that he was unable to read his emotions, and he just thought, here comes his friend. I think he thought he was going to say something into the mic that wasn't going to be great, but I don't think he saw that coming. And I think that there's so many factors that play into this, that the idea that we can just wrap this up and people should do this and this is going to be the protocol moving on, I don't think it's that. I don't know what the effect of this is on somebody's career, Erica.
Erica, you've been a victim of assault. You've talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I'm glad that so many people don't have this experience to even draw from, because when there is a physical, violent altercation, there is so much that's going on that, like, the idea that Chris Rock is still processing it makes a lot of sense to me. Like, the idea that people don't know how to approach it or what's the appropriate response totally makes sense to me.
How long did it take you to process your assault?
I mean, it took me a long time. I mean, it took me probably months. I still think about it, like, how did that happen, you know? But at the same time, like, the idea that you're being brought to justice, so to speak, I didn't get my day in court until a year later. So at that point, I was able to say this was the effect, because I came back and people were like, well, you shouldn't have done this, or, like, and it's like, I got beat up. Like, that happened. So, I just think that it does take time when anybody gets to this point, because there are so many moving parts that are happening, and you don't even know what the lasting effects are. Does Chris Rock have a concussion?
Right.
Like, is there something, like, up with his neck? Like, you don't know that.
Even mentally, with the whole world watching.
Right.
How humiliating.
Exactly.
We're going to look at the results right here. I'm looking up because I can read it better. 12% say he should lose his Oscar, 43% say kicked out of the Academy, 14% say nothing, and 30% say suspended from attending.
Nothing? I was at the like, what?